Billy Reeves with Paul Draper. Now, we haven't really spoken on the MANSUNCAST about the box set, Paul, because we've had to be a little bit elliptical about it, but now it's very much all out in the open. Have you enjoyed putting it together? Has it been an enjoyable experience?
When we started off, it seemed like an impossible task, but I guess it started off with me and P-Dub raiding EMI's archive up in West London and digging out tapes, and we reached out to fans for bootlegs, and we found a lot of I think we got 4 CDs of new demos and outtakes, alternative versions, lyrics that the record company wanted me to take out. We found an unreleased version of the track Grey Lantern that we took to radio the other week and was hammered all over Radio 6 and various other stations for a few days, and buy early. That's my motto.
Have you enjoyed it, P-Dub?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
There was a moment there where you were 3 months mixing all the live multi-tracks, Glasgow Barrowlands, Margate Winter Gardens, V2000. That was a lot of work.
Yeah, it was. That sort of took a lot longer than expected.
Yeah. Why was that? Was there because of the quality of the sound, the stuff that was coming from the desk?
I suppose when you think of a live gig, you kind of just generally get a bit of a balance up on the first track, and with a few tweaks for the rest of the show, it should generally work. Which is true to an extent, but on the other hand, you kind of go, actually, if this is like 12 songs, it's like mixing an album 5 times.
We didn't replace any instruments like the Who.
No, it is literally
not live at Leeds except for the drums by Keith Moon.
It is warts and all.
It is what it is.
Yeah,
but it does sound good. It's got a vibe.
Because there's a lot. I mean, of 25 CDs or 24 CDs and 1 DVD, so 25 discs. 10 of the discs are live CDs, but that includes radio stuff. So concert, festival, radio broadcast, Manchester, Reading, Radio 1 Live in Cardiff, Triple J in Australia. Where on earth did you
remember
find
that session? Yeah, when we were touring Australia.
So let's focus on those two, because those two sort of really jumped out at me. 10 live CDs. What was Triple J in Australia? Is that a radio station?
When we went to Australia, we had a hit there, so we were on the kids' TV shows and all that, and they're big. I guess they're big things. Like getting a John Peel session was live at the Wireless on Triple J or a Triple J set. I don't even know if Triple J's going now or still doing it, but some Australian fan will listen to this and message me on Facebook or something. But yeah, we did. We went into the radio station and just did a session and sat there in the archive for 25 years or whatever.
So you had to get it, presumably you had to license it from their archive, like a lot of this stuff, because licensing stuff from the BBC archives is difficult, isn't it?
One of the most bizarre things we found is we supported In Excess not too long a time before Michael Hutchins killed himself. And I sat next to him on the prop plane coming home and just chatting to him and that, and somehow, and I don't know where it's come from, the sound engineer just ran off a bootleg of our Norwegian gig with In Excess. Right. So that's included in there. And I mean, obviously, it's not of the sound quality of P-Dub using the full studio and the multi-tracks and that. It's a proper bootleg, but it's got a real vibe to it.
It has its own charm.
It's got its own charm. God knows how we found that, but that's a real gem that's in there.
So what's the rare recording from Paul Draper's personal archive?
I think what they might have been was they wanted to syndicate some stuff around America because we couldn't get there to go round radio stations. I think I played a few songs.
Oh right, okay. And live.
And they were just kept in the archive, and we dug deep for this one.
Yeah, not off. That we also talked when you and I had a chat last time we were together, sort of socially. We were talking about the fact that there may be some kind of record for Mansun in the British charts when it comes to EPs. That most of the hit singles were actually EPs. So not only do we think that possibly Mansun hold the record for the amount of EPs that charted, but also, of course, because they were all doubly formatted. Yeah, it's certainly an amount of tracks that therefore it's something like 68 songs you actually had in the British charts.
Yeah, we had 60.
They're all on there.
Yeah, well, of course, in the 90s, a lot of people filled them up with remixes, live versions, acoustic versions, and all. They don't count towards an EP. It has to be a new song. I think it was 3 or 4 songs. And we had 14 consecutive EPs. That's not counting our first couple of little indie singles, but we've yet to find anyone who's ever beaten that record where we qualified
different songs
as an EP. Each one we did, and 14 consecutive charting EPs. 5 of them top 10, I might add.
What's so fabulous about that, I think, is that what was so great about that 90s multi-formatting thing is that it was one of the things that kind of record companies kind of let you. I mean, you were bad enough to let you loose in a studio anyway, but people talk about those. People talk about B-sides in those days quite wistfully, saying it was great because it was just something the record company just give us 3 extra songs. They didn't care what it was.
Like we did the Legacy EP for Record Store Day. And it became virtually a 7-track album. Yeah. By the time we got all the tracks on it, and we put it on 12-inch vinyl, put it out, and bang, it's gone, sold out straight away.
Because you would have had to buy to get all the tracks. You would have had to buy the 7 and 2 CDs, wouldn't you?
Well, we also did an extra track on cassettes sometimes as well. You know, like an acoustic version of Manson's Only Love Song, like really rare stuff like that. Wow. There's loads of new content on this. It's got the 4 albums all remastered, but barring that, you've got all your 14 EPs, masses of live stuff, and then
the live stuff is amazing.
Obviously the book. There's a 160-page book by Peter Doggett, who wrote "You Never Give Me Your Money," the definitive story of the Beatles split.
Right, he did, yeah.
And my favourite part of the whole project is the fact that we found that we'd filmed Brixton Academy gig on 2 cameras, and so we spent a long time. Dub spent a long time mixing the audio and putting the video together to make it look, a bit more cameras than there actually are.
A live film,
and we made our first film, and it's on there.
And not only has there never been an official Mansun live album, but it's filmed.
Yeah, it's our first ever filmed concert.
Filmed concert, and so I was going to move on to that for the DVD, because not only have you got that, but again, licensing. Goodness only knows, it's also got the DVD's got all performances from Top of the Pops and later.
Yeah,
that must have been a right pain getting the.
Yeah. I think they wanted it comprehensively on the DVD, but it's got the Top of the Pops performances, the Jules Holland performances, the little documentary we did. But
what are your memories of Top of the Pops?
Dressing
up in a
World War
I
like what
helmet.
You think it is. You just sort of drive through a barrier and round Albert Square and turn up in a little dressing room in a 1960s thing, and then you just cool down, and then you do your dress rehearsal, and it's tiny, it's just 4 little stages facing each other, and then they bring the kids in, drug them all up on sugar, and then put a few plants in the audience, jumping up and down, going Mansun.
But a lot of the stuff in the 160-page hardback book, a lot of it was sent from fans and photographers all over the world. How did you get the shout out saying we need stuff?
I think the label Kscope put out on the Mansun social media. Anyone got any rare stuff? So there's different sections, because there's the story of the band by Peter Doggett.
Yeah.
There's a huge equipment section in it as well,
right.
Which is we went all over the country and literally all over the world getting fans, because there's a guy who owns my red and black guitar who loves to tell me it's worth £10,000 now.
Wow.
Someone offered him 10 grand for it, and I'm just like, can I have it back, please? But we flogged all our stuff off at the end of the band, not thinking that it would have a big resurgence as a cult band. Them things happen, don't they, to the Ramones, Velvet Underground, and it's sort of, we're in the middle of it happening to Manson, so... all the equipment we used through the band, the actual guitars. There's one guy who was a collector, and we photographed that, and all the microphones, all the studio gizzards, all. There was at one point we had 100 fanzines running. I think some of the other ones are in some of the earlier box sets we did in the Attack the Grey Lantern 6. There's photos of them all. Someone's got there's loads, but I think we had 3 official ones.
Yeah, it was 3 main ones.
There was 3 official fanzines who were all at war with each other. They're a really great document of the time, because you just wouldn't believe it in this age, but we lived by the fans would all turn up at the gigs and sell fanzines to each other. But there was over 100 different titles. Yeah,
but there's a third book as well, 48-page studio bits and bobs cataloguing newly discovered archival ephemera. So is that the stuff you're talking about when it comes to the studio stuff?
Yeah, that's we got all that from EMI's archive. There's all things in there. Dub, back when we were doing 6, I'd just sing me lyrics and go home, and Dub, being as efficient as he is, put them all away in a folder and kept them there. So there's my original lyrics that I'd sing a song from on there, and then there's all studio bumps.
I love that. That's I think that's the thing I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
Why did you do that, Dub, then? Was that because musicians are such messy bastards?
Yeah, somebody in the shop had to be organised, didn't they? Yeah, so we had all kinds of bits and papers and whatever else, but you get to like 2 weeks before you're finishing the album, it's like, oh, where were the lyrics to this? Because I'd written a new verse on it, and you're just like... Oh.
Sounds like me.
And it wasn't unheard for you to kind of think, oh, the bit that I wrote for that song we can use in this song.
Yeah. So let's take that chorus out of there.
And shoehorn it in here.
Yeah, so there's loads of... And there's I obsessive compulsive disorder. I have a mild obsessive compulsive, so I have to write everything in lists. Every time I'd finish something, a lyric or an idea or something I thought we could try and attract, I'd scrub it out. So all of my paperwork just became just a massive black scrubbing out things. But I'm now not going to do that, because I'm going to keep it all, everything, all my notes for the album and my lyrics and production ideas, and I guess given to the fans, or it'd be interesting to see how the thought process works, or let light into magic about the thought process works. They could possibly go into the archive. If they go in the archive, they'll become a book one day, won't they? When I get round to my own box set when I'm in my 60s.
That's right. Now everyone's got to think about the box set for any future material.
Yeah,
now.
But I mean, there's some fans that collect this stuff, and I mean, it's going to be complicated pulling together, and when I'm not here, who's going to look after the Mansun stuff? Exactly, because, of course, Manson's not really going to take off until I'm dead.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Yeah.
And then it's going to go massive, and I'm going to fucking miss out on it all.
It's fine. We'll look after it for you, won't we, Peter?
Yeah.
I want to talk about Little Kicks shortly, if I may, because we've spoken about the other 3 albums at great length, but Little Kicks is part of this, and arguably the forgotten Mansun album, but also had one of the biggest hits on it. I Can Only Disappoint You is one of my favourites, was from that period. What are your memories of the recording and
because
etc.
People perceived 6 as being so weird, we were under strict instructions from people around the band that it had to be a straight album. No segues, no stupid lyrics, no mad drum fills, recorded for ILR radio, so no big distortion on it. That's independent local radio, if you're listening.
Those were the days.
And so we had to appear in the video, and they tried to straighten out a band that was bonkers.
Yeah.
So what you left...
I can't blame them, to be honest.
Well, the record company, major labels don't know any better. If we were an independent label, we could have just done what we wanted, you know what I mean? But we were a big act for them worldwide. Totally, so they stuck their oar in where they left me alone on the first 2 albums, and it was a mistake. And the album was put out for monetary reasons too quick. And but this is a record of the album. I actually think I hit my best songwriting stride ever then. Until the Next Life is, I think, the second best song I ever wrote.
I love that song.
Forgive Me is a decent track. I think The New Beginning, the opening track's great. Comes as No Surprise, one of my favourite Mansun tracks I've ever done. So I think there's loads of great songs in there. I think it's too clean.
Right. Okay.
But as time and fashions change, it's come a lot more back into fashion, that album, I think. So it's And we have plans for it for the future as well, but I'll keep them under wraps now.
Okay.
But
Because I wondered how you would feel about it now. Because given the fact that given the keys to the sweet shop for 6, and then given this sort of like framework in which to work, is that you actually did do some of your finest work because you had to work within those tiny parameters. Well, so trying to burst out of them meant that the two things combined.
When you're working on pop music anyway, you've got very narrow parameters of creativity to work with. You know what I mean? You've got a drum kit, you've got a vocal. It's got to be done in 3 minutes. Or there's all this even before you start. You've got the building blocks of what you're doing. But because we put the album out early, and never let me finish off the other songs, so they just become the B-sides. So the fan perception of the album is all the B-sides are better than the album.
All right, okay, yeah.
So you put the whole suite of songs together, and maybe a little remix of one here, or dirty them up a little bit, give them a bit of crunch. And I think that might be something we might look at in the future. I never produced that album, you see.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But I'd like to get my hands on the desk.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But it is looked back fondly now.
Yeah, I think so. What was the state of play with the band by that point?
They sacked me at the end of it. So I think. Chad just avoided me, just did his own thing. I tried to work with him, but he didn't want to work with me. There's a reason for that, but it's too dark to go into. And the other two were just sort of wheeled in and wheeled out, really. So we were a bit like the Police, you know what I mean? Sting would be skiing while Stuart Copeland put his bongo. I don't think anyone really saw each other, except for when we put the backing tracks down in Air Studios, just to make it a little bit more expensive, just Air Studio. So I'm standing in the queue with me tray, and I've got George Martin next to me, and next to me is Paul McCartney, and I've met Paul McCartney before. He's like, "Oh, right, beans on toast, please." I'm like, "Oh, great. Oh, it's Paul. What are you doing here?" "Oh, I'm just doing an orchestral thing with George in there. Like as you do." And I'm standing there, and he's like, and he leans over to me, and he just said, "Mansun, do a cover of Helter Skelter." So I said, "I will." So,
sir,
I am under instruction from the Macker himself to do it.
You've been anointed.
Yeah, I've been anointed. So I've got the official. This will be the official one.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So that was a typical day in the Little Kick sessions, really. Then just to keep the costs down, we rented Pink Floyd's studio boat.
Of course, yeah. Of course. Owned by Dave Gilmour?
Owned by Dave Gilmour,
yeah. Story, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then I got friendly with this. And then I got friendly with this roadie who was married to Lisa Goddard's twin sister.
Right.
And started hanging out with Alvin Stardust in deepest Sussex.
Of course, Alvin Stardust.
It's almost compulsory, isn't it, if you record it in Sussex to
Did
go
you
and
see
have your
Alvin
lunch
Stardust's famous £1 million guitar that he forgot was in the garage that had been signed by everybody because when he was in Shane Fenton, when he was when he was the second Shane Fenton.
Yeah, well, he's got pally with John Lennon.
Yeah, because they played the Shane Fenton and the Fenton. He was in the second lineup because they lost their original singer. Buggered off. I can't remember.
He was the second Shane Fenton.
He was actually the second Shane Fenton. Yeah. He had to step in for the actual Shane Fenton once, and then got the gig.
Such a shame Bowie stole his whole act off him.
Yeah, with Mansun being, the sort of like cachet rising so hugely recently, buoyed by your solo work and your solo shows.
Yeah,
playing not only Mansun material but also you being. A solo artiste in your own right. Yeah. What would be the chances of a Mansun reunion? Obviously, when the COVID-19 pandemic is over.
Well, I mean, I'm just finishing off my second solo album now, Cult Leader Tactics.
What's it called again, Paul?
Cult Leader Tactics.
Cult Leader Tactics.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just finishing that off, and then. We've got our tour booked in for April, but we can't announce it because we don't know about social distancing or anything like that. But all I can say is that I did Tim Burgess's listening party, and we did the two Mansun albums on it, and I've just bumped into Andy Rathbone on there. So
right on the Twitter.
On Twitter. Yeah. So we've been having a few conversations about he'll ring me up and go, "Oh, I've got a box set." I'm like, "Why don't we just go and sit round a table and have a coffee with each other?" But I think scars run deep there, man. But
well, I was wondering if the other three that would have gone rusty. I mean, you've kind of, you ran the studio, you've carried on as a musician, you've played 6 in its entirety. I just wondered how difficult it would be, not only personality-wise, but literally to get all the right guitars and effects. And
that's easy to get all the equipment together. Chad would probably think I could never get this back together, but you if it ever happened, it'd be an 18-month. So you would, and we'd have our set list, and you would go a long time out, and it's like riding a bike. Andy's never stopped playing. He came down here recently, and we had not an audition, but just see if we could be in a room together and play together. And we played through Being a Girl parts 1 and 2. And,
wow. Okay.
And so we thought, we can play together. But aside from that, I'm going to keep that one close to my chest.
Would you like to do it?
I'm
Same
always,
4 guys.
I'm always torn about it. If it was the 4 of us and we could resolve our differences, or even just throw all the past in the bin and do it, I'd do it.
Right.
Probably.
There must be some kind of rock and roll relay. I mean, Sandy Shaw did it for a little while, didn't she?
Yeah, I think. At one point at the end of Mansun, I think they were trying to fly Bono over to like mediate between me and Chad. He just did not want to be. He wanted to get out. So he got out, and the whole thing collapsed.
Well, it didn't really. I guess it collapsed then, but it's had its whole new second life.
Well, yeah, it never really died because the fans never died.
Exactly,
what happened was Facebook and things like that, and MySpace, and the fans started congregating, and then next thing it was a convention and 2-page spreading enemy, and that's when everyone started coming to me and then offering me record deals and this and that, and suddenly it's just exploded again. But the reason it is because we left loads of great music behind.
Yeah, exactly, and lots of it.
You can't do it if you got crap music. Yeah. There's a whole new generation of Mansun fans coming through. We got a lot of fans from the prog community. Obviously, Britpop's a whole genre in itself, and we got a lot of fans from that. And of course, we got the hardcore Mansun fans who just really love the records.
For whom Mansun were their favourite band.
There's a lot of people who Mansun was their favourite band. Yeah. I mean, when they did the convention, the first one, the big one, there's more people at a Mansun convention that you get most Britpop bands proper gigs these days.
Yeah. Well, let's hope there'll be a Mansun convention again soon. What is going to happen to the music industry, Paul?
I cannot see beyond when they're going to reopen venues. I think standing venues or theatres like I'll be playing will be the very last to open. And they were going to do a test, weren't they, at the Clapham Grand on Saturday, which is a 1,200 capacity venue, and they were going to put 200 people in it. It's farcical. You can't do a gig like that. I
don't see how you can police it unless you've got people standing around saying you're too close to her.
Yeah, but I mean, you could have people, as you know, that's not what a gig is about. A gig's about communicating people, not like telling people to stand 2 meters away. Yeah. But so if that's what they're experimenting with now, my tour's penciled in for April. I'm worried about the future of live music while this COVID is going around, because it is just farcical.
In this country as well, and also once the venue's shut and the developers move in, they don't come back.
Yeah. Well, I've seen that before. Yeah. And well, we saw it with the Astoria, didn't we? But there's got to be help from the government to keep the venues alive. But even then, the only way I could see it at the minute is if because you rent a venue for a day. Yeah. So it's possible that you could do matinee shows where you do your gig twice in a day and half the audience.
Oh, right, yeah. But like the Beatles.
Yeah, bit like the Beatles. Yeah, I'm not adverse to going out on the road and doing 2 shows a day.
Under 6, there's a lot of kind of indie bands do an under 16s show earlier in the day. Yeah,
I'm really not adverse to doing that. Although I'd have to look after my voice. But then you're talking about a venue like the Clapham Grand. If you're going to play there, you do 2 shows of 600. Well, the government tried to do an experiment the other day with 200. So that means you have to do 6 shows in a day. It's never going to happen. They're a million miles away from it. and it's going to be the very last thing they open after football stadium. You can social distance in seated stadiums, you can social distance in seated theatres, but you look at a venue like Manchester Ritz or the Forum in London. How are you going to social distance there?
Yeah. And of course, as we're all amateur virologists now, it's the singing in an enclosed room is one of the most dangerous things you can do.
Yeah, well, they're all singing in the same direction. So, does everyone have to wear masks?
Yeah,
or the band singing?
What do you do about the toilets?
Yeah, fuck knows what's going to happen to the wind section of orchestras.
Yeah,
there's been a separate room. And then there's Brexit.
Do you have a bar?
You fancy going abroad?
Yeah, well. I've just been offered an Italian tour, so I'm definitely going to take that up when it happens. But they're in the same boat as us.
Yeah,
I'm really worried about the live music sector. But even so, I'm going ahead and put my album out. I'm not dependent on doing my tour. And as soon as we can get out, I'm going to get out on the road.
Yeah.
No, my album's still coming in the new year. Regardless of the tour with it or not, we'll wait and do the tour.
What's the title of it?
It's called Cult Leader Tactics, my new album.
Okay, your Paul Draper's new album coming out on Kscope.
Yeah.
When's it due out?
End of February-ish, something like that. Yeah. It's much better than my first one, I must say. And my first one was
rubbish.
My first one was brilliant as well.
Yeah.
My first one was way better than the Mansun stuff, but this one, it's in a different league, man.